I'm Alex Sager. I teach social and political philosophy in the department, but today what I want to talk about is a text called The Handbook by the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. It's a text that I teach when I teach the philosophy of life and death, and it's a work that I've actually found very useful in my own life, particularly in times that are difficult, when I'm anxious or concerned or worried or upset. Epictetus, he wrote on a lot of topics. The Handbook is actually an abridgment of a much longer work, the Discourses, where he spends a lot of time talking about topics such as free will, mind, God, the structure of the universe, that sort of thing. I'm going to sort of leave that aside and really just talk about two insights. The first insight is that there are some things you can control and some things that you cannot control. Now, that sounds very basic, but there's, I think, a really kind of deep point behind this. Now, Epictetus, he thought that we need to distinguish between what's internal and what's external. And external things we can't control, things like our body, maybe our health, how much money we have, even our reputation and what people say about us. Though you may disagree with Epictetus about the extent we can control these things, there's certainly parts of those of external things that are outside our control. What we can control are our thoughts and our emotions and how we see the world. And the insight is that there's no point in getting upset about things you can't control. If you can recognize that there's really nothing you can do about something, you're wasting your energy and your emotions getting upset about them. So whenever there's a situation that is difficult, one thing to ask is, what can I control and what can I not control? And it's actually kind of a useful thing to do, particularly because if you can identify something you can control, then you can focus on that and you can give yourself a break about the stuff you can do nothing about. The other point, and this is very closely related, is a view about the emotions or the passions. And the idea is that emotions are judgments of value. So when you feel, say, fearful, you're judging that there's something that can hurt you. Or if you're feeling angry, you're judging that somebody has wronged you. If you're sad, you're judging that perhaps you've suffered some sort of loss. And what's important here is because emotions are judgments, they can be irrational. Your judgments can be based on poor information. You can be making logical mistakes. You can be assessing the world. You can be maybe not looking at it from the perspective that will give you the most insight and understanding. And so this idea about emotions, and again, the other thing that's important is that the judgments of value. So what Epictetus tells us is we should align our emotions with what is really itself valuable. So if you're concerned about things that actually aren't virtuous or aren't worth being caught up in, for example, questions about, say, fame or questions about wealth, these things that he thought weren't really what ultimately matters in life, then you're actually it's not just an ethical fault, but it's actually a failing of rationality. And I find this, again, a useful thing. Again, when I'm feeling emotion, say I'm feeling angry, I need to ask myself, am I being rational in being angry? Have I understood the situation correctly? Have I understood the other person's perspective, the perspective of the person who's making me angry? Are there other things, maybe from my own biography that are causing my anger rather than the situation itself? And so what the Stoics, and Epictetus in particular, are telling you is to sort of align your emotions with what is actually worth caring about. So we're going back to the question about what's in control and what's out of control, and realizing that it's actually kind of pointless to it's actually irrational to feel emotions in certain ways. And again, in situations like we're in today, it's something that I try to remind myself. Again, what can I control? What can't I control? And I can choose how I ultimately respond to these sorts of things. So these are very sort of basic insights, but I think there's a lot one can do with them when living one's life. I hope that's useful for you, and I hope you check out the handbook if you haven't read it before.